Let's take a little twirl around the rink with a morning skate edition of the Inside Edge. Here are your hosts, Bob McElligott and Jody Shelley.
Tonight, the Blue Jackets back on the ice at Nationwide Arena, taking on the Ottawa Senators. I'm Bob McElligott alongside of Jody Shelley. This is the morning skate edition of the Inside Edge. And the Blue Jackets looking to bounce back after losing last night in Carolina to the Hurricanes 3-2. Jody, again, that's one of those games that kind of smarts when that game's over because you have it 2-0, and then all of a sudden, in a span of less than 5 minutes, 3 goals go the other way, and you lose the game.
Yeah, of course. And then, you look back and you think of some of the opportunities you had maybe to get the third goal, maybe an opportunity to stop them on the breakdowns. Losses are always, chances, I guess, to look at what went wrong. So I think the Blue Jackets have done a good job of that this year, rebounding after losses. Now they've got 2 in a row. Ottawa is here now. That's the good news. Is that happened just a few hours ago. They were on the plane traveling back from Carolina, and here they are with Ottawa sitting here ready to go tonight. Jackets didn't skate this morning. Just a few of the young guys. I saw Boone Jenner out there. I think Ryan Murray skated. McElligott will go tonight. Bobrovsky skated this morning. These are good moments. So this is a chance for the Blue Jackets to right the ship with a solid win here against a desperate team in Ottawa, who's always under the microscope, being from Canada.
And for the Blue Jackets, is this in some ways a must-win because you had the 8-game winning streak, now you've lost back-to-back games. All of a sudden, if you lose this one, now that becomes a losing streak. Well,
yeah, and that's part of this whole thing is that, if you look if you look back and there's a couple wins in a row, okay, that's fine, a little blip on the radar, but you got to put WWW after that and go into this California trip feeling pretty good about yourself. So, there's a small segment left before a long break here, and they realize what's at stake, and I'd say urgency will be at all-time high here for the Jackets again tonight.
And the other change for the Blue Jackets tonight is Blake Como is going to return to the lineup. Corey Trop will sit out tonight. What does Como and the energy that he brings coming back into the lineup do for this team?
Well, Blake Como is a guy that brings that. He's physical. He's a guy who's going to be excited to get back in the lineup. Obviously, it's a little input of energy. He can score. He's had 20-goal seasons. But most noticeably is he hits everything. I mean, he's had a game. I think he had 11 hits one game, and that's not easy to do. And it's a nice thing to have on your team.
Now, for the Ottawa Senators, they're a team that's very similar to the Blue Jackets right now. As a matter of fact, the last opponent they had was the Carolina Hurricanes. They lost that game 6-3. They've lost back-to-back games. Just like the Blue Jackets, they're right in the mix in the Eastern Conference because, the Blue Jackets now sit 1 point out of that wild card spot as well as 1 point out of a guaranteed playoff spot. So when you start talking about wild card, the Ottawa Senators hoping to be in that mix too. So it's a big game for both teams tonight.
Well, I tell you, man, that's it. It's one of those things where you don't want to look back at segments of the season in April and say, geez, if we had got that weekend or if we didn't do this weekend. And I think both teams are in that situation where, okay, there's been moments where they've kind of underachieved, and there's been moments where they've won games on both sides that maybe they didn't deserve. But that's part of being where they're at, in the hunt. So you look at this Ottawa team, and they're desperate too.
And when you look at the Ottawa Senators, Todd Richards spent a lot of time this morning talking about their blue line, more specifically Erik Karlsson. He leads their team in points. He's a defenseman that is extremely dynamic when it comes to scoring, when it comes to creating chances. It gives them another dimension that a lot of teams don't have.
Well, yeah, and he's a threat. He's an all-star. He's a confident player. I mean, they lost their leadership last year. Really lost it when Alfredsson went to Detroit over the summer. I guess wouldn't be last year, but over the summer. And, look at this group without Alfredsson. They're a young group. They're looking at guys like Corvo, who's a veteran in the league, even the Mark Mathot, who the fans are familiar with here. And then Karlsson, Chris Neal. Karlsson is that all-star on this team along with Spezza. And when you have a couple all-stars like that, yeah, the team waits and watches and thrives on how they play. And I think this is a team that has ups and downs as those two players play.
And another guy that really is having a good season for these Ottawa Senators is Clark MacArthur. He's second in points. He's second in goals. And ironically, Clark MacArthur, when he came up, and I remember when he played in Rochester, and every time he played against Syracuse, he had big games. And then he went to Toronto, and he played against the Blue Jackets. I remember him having a big game in this building against the Blue Jackets. He seems like one of those guys that, for whatever reason, has pretty good success against this organization. But this year he's having good success against everybody.
I love this guy. I've always loved him. I loved him in Toronto. I'm not sure why they gave him up. He's a versatile guy. He plays well with some of the best players in the league, which is a compliment to him. That's not easy to do. He can adapt, and I just love the way he plays. He plays hard, and he's got a really good sense around the net. So it's not surprising to me that he's second in points on the team, and doing what he does offensively. He's a real good guy too. I met him through Scotty Hartnell, and he's from Lloydminster, Alberta, Saskatchewan. It's a border town, and just a real nice guy. So he's fit in well here with Ottawa, and definitely a bright spot.
You know, we've talked all about the Ottawa Senators, and one name we haven't brought up specifically is Bobby Ryan. And, Bobby Ryan is a guy that they got this offseason. They expect big things out of him. He's putting the puck in the back of the net. But why is it that he kind of seems to be a little bit more under the radar with this team than he was with the Anaheim Ducks?
Well, I think the supporting cast in Anaheim is a big deal to do with Bobby Ryan. He played on the line with Getzlaf and Perry, I think. And if I'm not mistaken, he spent some time on that line. And that's a nice little role for Bobby Ryan. He was the secondary guy there. Here he's more of a primary guy, and that's not an easy role to adjust to. I mean, he's in a media market now. It's a lot of pressure. It's a lot of day-to-day operation under the microscope as far as the media is concerned in Canada. And as a primary guy, it's a lot to weigh. It's a lot to think about. They analyze everything you do, everything you don't do. He's got 40 points. He's got 52 games. He's got 19 goals and 21 assists. Not a bad year for Bobby Ryan. Jeez, he's even plus 13. But when the team, he's not getting the accolades because the team isn't doing well. And that's really where the underlying message maybe for Bobby Ryan is he's got to adjust to playing more of a team game, not just that point-producing game.
So the Blue Jackets and the Senators wrap up their season series here tonight. Each team has won once, and the final score of each of the first two games was 4-1. The Blue Jackets had the last victory over the Ottawa Senators in Ottawa. Ironically, these two teams haven't seen each other since November, so it's been a long time. Don't be surprised if that first 10 minutes of the game is getting re-familiar with each other here tonight. Jody will be on the radio side with me tonight, and of course during the second intermission we'll have sparring with Shelley returning tonight.
Okay.
So if you're listening to this, you have all day to think of a question you would like to ask Jody, and then you can tweet it to us using the hashtag CBJBooth. So when they start rolling in all day, that actually gives you a chance to prepare your answers as well.
Yeah, I'll be waiting for those to roll in, and as they do, I'll be doing some homework on them and really trying to answer them to my best ability.
All right, game time tonight is 7 o'clock, and, we'll be here again on the Blue Jackets Radio Network. For Jody, Shelley, I'm Bob McElligott. Thanks for listening to the Morning Skate edition of the Inside Edge.
You've been listening to the Morning Skate edition of the Inside Edge. Come back every game day to get the breakdown from Bob McElligott and Jody Shelley.